Christopher Bledsoe Sr. is a commercial pilot who from 1986 until 2005 owned an award-winning construction business in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He was nominated as Businessman of the Year in 2003 by the National Republican Congressional Committee and was invited to President George Bush's 2004 inauguration. Chris is also a rescue scuba diver, and prior to his experience was a noted hunter, on record for having killed one of the largest bear ever reported in the state of North Carolina. This was not a guy in a bear suit. In January 2007, Chris and his son Chris Jr. and 3 of his subcontractors witnessed a series of terrifying sightings of unexplained phenomena. They were investigated by MUFON and by a scientist from the space industry. Their experience was featured on the Discovery Channel's 2008 series UFOs Over Earth, the Fayetteville Incident. Chris currently lives in North Carolina with his wife Yvonne and their 4 children. He owns chickens and dogs and keeps a large garden. He loves backpacking and nature, and worthy of note, since his experience, he has given up the sport of hunting. When I first got to know Chris, there are certain people you meet in your life, and the moment you meet them, you know they are friends for life. And we have stayed in regular contact since we met here last year. Got together earlier this summer with some other friends, and I've been aware of something that's been developing in Chris's life that has been confidential for all the right reasons, that he has given me permission to say here in a public forum for the very first time. And that is this. Last year, he had given one other talk before he spoke here in Maine, and it was for a local MUFON group in North Carolina. At that talk was a woman named Dr. Diana Pasulka. Diana is a professor of religious studies at a major university in North Carolina. And Chris's telling of his experience, and boy, it got hot in here in a hurry. This is not 72 degrees. Somebody let the folks back home know. Audrey, would you send up a flare and tell them? I'll take care of it after. Diana approached Chris after this and asked him if she could have his permission to write a book about his experiences, and was so serious about it that she took a sabbatical from her teaching job. Then she informed him that if he was willing, she wanted to work in tandem with 2 extremely successful Hollywood screenwriters who were friends of his, and those are the brothers Chad and Carrie Hayes, who are responsible most recently for a little film called The Conjuring, which this summer has been the top hit movie. $200 million in sales since just July 19th. This is a Warner Brothers New Line Cinema release. The options have been picked up. This story will be a major motion picture. It is based on Chris's life story and will be told and written from a religious studies point of view. The UFOs of today are the angels of the Old Testament. Without further ado, my dear friend and yours, Mr. Christopher Bledsoe Jr.
First off, I'd like to say thank you to Audrey. For Audrey Starborn She is quite a gal to put on this conference. It's amazing. I mean, this is about as many people as I've ever seen, even at the biggest conferences. She did a tremendous job, and I think we should give her a hand. First off, I tell you a little. Peter did a pretty good job. About who I am. I'm just a North Carolina native. I live where I was born and raised. My father and his father before him, the land that we live on has pretty much been in the family for many, many years. So I'm not, how I'm here is beyond me. A UFO was never in my vocabulary, period, until the day I walked up on them. And that's what I did in broad daylight. It was January the 8th of 2007. I had been retired. And let me back up just a second. In 2005, I sold our business because of being very sick. I was sick for over 15 years with what was called Crohn's disease. It was a terrible thing that there were days that I wished I could change. I mean, many days I was praying, Lord, give me a nice day. Just let me have a good day. And it's very important that I tell this because to me, this is how it all came about. Very sick. 2005, I sold the company. 2006, I didn't do anything. I was just recovering in bed. When I sold the business, I was in bed. The accountants and stuff were at my bedside. 2007, my dad approached me, and my brother-in-law, he had a big house at the coast that he was building. And it was a lot. It was $1 million home. And Dad was wanting me to get out and do some stuff, so I actually agreed to go to the beach and place a few guys down and help them, kind of consult and getting this house finished. So it turned into be a 4-month project. I was feeling horrible, but somewhat better than the previous year because being away from work, my doctor said, if you don't get away from this work, you're going to die. So I paid attention, sold the business, and that January, the 8th, was the last day of that job. That was a 4-month job. It was kind of a celebration. 3 of these guys that are in the show, if you've seen the UFOs Over Earth show, there are 3 gentlemen in there that don't dress quite like I do. They're more country boys, and they're good down to earth people, roofers and framers. You can give them a blueprint, they can build you a hotel. But they came by that day to pick their money up and said, let's celebrate. We don't have to go out of town for anymore. Can we go fishing? I had the only 4-wheel drive truck. And where they wanted to go was my old family land, my great-grandfather's land. Had a ferry crossing across this river. So I agreed that I'd take them fishing. My oldest boy, Chris Jr., he was there, so there were 5 of us. They went on to town. I got them their money. They went on to town and came back, and I picked them up about 2:30, and we headed to the river. Now what I'm going to tell you is what was reported. If you've seen the show, the UFOs Over Earth show, you understand what I'm talking about. What I'm going to tell you is what was reported, what we all 5 of us actually told this in our report, which didn't really get all told. But the record's there. The interviews are there. So, long about 2:30, we pull up to the river. I'm feeling bad. I kind of feel responsible for these guys. They're on the bank fishing, my son and these 3 men, and having a good time. It's cool, it's January, it's a beautiful day. It's in the 50s, I guess. Not feeling good, I just felt like going off on my own. So I walked down, and if you can imagine where we were, is, if you can imagine a big cornfield parallel on the highway. If you cross this field on a 2-rut dirt road across the field, the far side of the field is trees. But when you get to the trees to the other side, it dives downhill about 100 feet to the river bottom. It's only a quarter mile. It's 200 yards across the field, but a quarter mile through the woods. So it dead ends into a half-acre grassy area, about twice as big as this room actually, 3 times maybe. So I go further back, and I walk down in the woods about 4 o'clock, and I find me a tree on a river gully, and I just kind of lean back against, just kind of meditating and trying to feel better, hoping I'd see a deer or something come strolling by. Got a little dark because I didn't have a flashlight along about, I guess it was 4:30, 4:45. I'd been in there about 45 minutes maybe. It started getting dark. Without a flashlight, I thought, well, I better come out and see if these guys want to go home. When I got to the fishing site, they were having fun. And I said, look, you want to go home or you want to fish a while? They're like, well, let's fish. I said, well, it's going to be cold tonight. The weather says 30 degrees. It's going to frost. Let's get a fire going. So I stopped them from their fishing, and we all took off around the edge of this grassy area and pulled out logs and twigs and got a big fire going and still had some daylight. Now keep in mind, I never thought of a UFO. I was building 100 homes a year. Very sick. The furthest thing from my thoughts was a UFO. I never even studied them. Never had any inclination what was about to happen. So I guess it was 10 minutes after 5. In January, it gets dark about 5:30. So I had a quarter mile to walk to get to the field. Instead of going back in the cul-de-sac, the dead end, I went back the way we came to the field. I told the guys, I'm going to go up to this field and see some deer or something come out to feed in the afternoon. I just wasn't into fishing. I leave the fire. I guess it's 10 after 5. I got a quarter mile to walk, and it's a 190-degree turn. And then it goes uphill. So it parallels the riverbank for 1/8 of a mile, and then it goes up 1/8 and gets about 100 feet elevation. High as this building across the street. So I can't see but the top of the hill when I made the curve. But long story short, I tell these guys goodbye. I'll be back shortly, just after dark when I can't see anything. I walk away from them. They got a fire going. The fire's at their back. They're sitting there with the poles. My son's with them. I'm walking out of the grass into where the road starts. And the road narrows down to where it's real ruddy and muddy. And the truck just wallers through it. There's ruts this deep. And in places the mirrors scrub the trees along the side. So I'm tippy-toeing through there, and as I'm going along, I hear this noise beside me, and it's like something's walking in the bushes, and I thought, oh my, there's a deer or a turkey. So I stopped and I'm looking, and it's echoing because the valleys in that river bottom's quiet. There's no wind, and there was no birds. There was nothing making a sound. Just eerie quiet. I could hear this noise in the left, so I stopped. I look, I can't see anything. It's thick. No leaves on the trees, just dry, crackly leaves on the ground. So I start walking again, and then I hear this same thing, just following me. I thought, oh, this is kind of unusual. And I've hunted all my life. I was shot at 10 years old, point blank, and had a near-death experience from that at 10. A hole blooded me this big. And that's a different story. But it came out in the regression. Pretty interesting stuff. I still have lead, 17 pieces from here around. But I started to walk the third time, and I don't know what hit me, but fear come over, because it was not usual. It was totally unusual to what I was hearing. So I actually froze and got down on my hands and knees, and I'm trying to look through the bushes to see what's following me. So my hair is standing up on end, and I got another 100 yards to make this, or less, to make this curve. Once I get to the curve, it's facing the west. So the sun is already set behind the trees, but the light is coming down that road. Where I'm at, it's kind of rode over, so it's like a tunnel. So it's really creepy. And I've never been creeped out in the woods like that. I mean, this bear I shot was from me to this thing away, standing up, coming at me. And I didn't get scared. But this actually unnerved me really bad. So I walk on again, it follows me again. I got on my knees 3 times along that path, trying to figure out what's in these woods. So the third time I stood up, I hurried. I started kind of picking my step up, and I made that curve and started towards the west. Now I'm looking up this road. It's muddy, and it's going up to about high as this building. And so I'm feeling this sigh of relief. I'm not hearing this noise now when I made the curve. I'm feeling better, so I start up this hill. When I get to the top of this hill, it's a field, a very big field. I couldn't see the field yet, but I could start seeing the trees on the far side of the field, the tops of them come into view. But the minute I did, when these trees come into view, I looked. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I looked, I froze, I stopped, and there's 2 that looks like the setting sun or the rising sun. When you get up in the morning and you see it, it's brilliant orange, you can look at it and it doesn't hurt your eyes. They were that big. There were 2 of them. And they were swirling like liquid fire. It was orange as a tangerine, and it was just swirling. They weren't moving, but this around it was moving. It looked alive almost. Just flaming. So immediately I freeze. I couldn't tell you what's going through my mind at this minute because, like I said, I never thought of a UFO. And I'm trying to compute what it is I'm looking at. I feel bad. Been sick. 15 years I was sick. Taking a handful of medication every day. In and out the doctor with it. So immediately I thought, okay, this is not my day. I'm gonna run. That's what I thought. So I look back behind me. Actually, I had this hill in front of me, so I squat down, and I'm using the hill to hide myself from these objects that's sitting on the far side of that field. So I turn to look back like I'm gonna run, and when I turn back to face it, all I can say is it looked like a zipper opened up, and a hole opened up, and a third one come out of it, and it shot right up beside the other 2, and stopped, boom, right beside those 2. Boy, I'm getting chills now thinking about it. I froze immediately. I get down, and I'm on the ground. I'm in the middle of the road, and the hills above me. They can't see me, I don't think. I can't see them, so I kind of crab myself over to the edge of the ditch. I get into the reeds, like cane pole. I raise my head up, and there they are, 3 of them. So immediately I turned to run. Now what I'm telling you was reported. What the show you saw, if you saw it, was nothing like this. And you'll understand why some other folks are interested in the show. So I turned to run, I look back, it was still there. The next thing I remember, I'm running up to the fire where these guys are fishing. They're all standing up, 3 of them. My son's not there. So I'm trotting up to the fire. I'm thinking 15, 20 minutes at the most is gone. I just walk up there and I'm hiding using the hill and most 15 minutes and I'm back. Well, they're like, where in the world have you been? I'm like, what do you mean where I've been? I'm just up at the field. And I saw the most amazing thing. They're like, you've been gone all night. I'm like, no, I haven't. It's just been 15, 20 minutes. They said, no, it's 11 o'clock. And I just went up there at 10 minutes after 5 when I left. And immediately I panicked. It wasn't computing what they were telling me. I couldn't have been gone. But the truck was moved, my truck. And I'm like, where's Chris Jr.? They're like, well, he left 2 hours ago. He went in the woods where he went earlier in the day looking for you on foot. I'm like, oh my Lord, this is what I'm thinking. He's gotten in those woods and they're big. And he's gotten lost and it's dark. So I take off, running from the fire towards the woods, and I'm shouting out for him, where are you? Where are you, son? I don't hear an answer. And finally I get to the edge of the forest, and I panic, and I'm pulling the shrubs back. I get into the woods, and he's not answered yet, but finally I hear disturbance. And he comes up, grabbing a hold up, and scared me to death. It's dark. I don't have a flashlight. I'm panicked. He's in the bushes. He's hiding. And all he can say is, where you been? Where you been, Dad? I said, son, I just walked up the hill for a little bit. He's like, no, you left me. Why'd you leave me? He said, they've had me pinned here forever. I'm like, what's had you pinned? He said, these aliens, they've had me on the ground, these creatures, I don't know what they are. They're glowing, and they've been, every time one would look at me, I couldn't move. So for 2 hours, he was dealing with that while I was gone. So immediately, I'm freaked out. Bad, and I'm not telling him much of what I saw, because of what he's telling me. So I grab him by the arm, and I start back to the truck, to the fire, trying to calm him down. We get over to the fire, and there's 3 guys that quit fishing. They're standing around the fire, and their eyes are great big and wide because they don't know what to think. And they're just old country boys. They never heard of no UFO. They're roofers and framers. And Chris Jr., he's all upset, bad, real bad. So the whole crowd's wide-eyed and scared and trying to figure out what's going on. And about that time, I guess we hadn't been at the fire 5 minutes, one of the gentlemen with us, he shouts, and he's pointing up in the air, and he says, look, what's that? And all I can say is that if you look at Venus at night when it's really brilliant, and it's just looks almost like it's sparkling, there were 9 or 8 or 9 of these objects above us, and they looked like Venus that far away. They just started moving all across the sky, all of them. And 3 of them come down and landed across the river, straight in front of us, 150 yards away. And you talking about pandemonium set in at that moment. I'm trying to make it funny. I get upset, I'm sorry, about my son. But we left our fishing poles, everything in the river. We jumped in the truck, funniest thing, we take off. They're screaming. I mean, it's just absolutely terrifying. We thought we were totally being invaded. These guys are here, and my son talked about aliens, and me talking about UFOs up at the top. Now we got 3. This one landed in front of 5 of us across the river. You didn't hear about this in UFOs over the Earth show. I promise you, it wasn't there. But this is all what was reported. So we take off, jump in the truck, everybody, leave our fishing poles in the river, coolers, whatever was there was there. I give it the gas, and I'm trying to get the truck down through this muddy road, and one of the guys is screaming and yelling, hollering, hurry, hurry. And I'm like, I can't go any faster. And he kept shouting, and then I looked in the mirror, and they're all facing the back window. And undoubtedly, one of these things that come out of the forest was still there and was chasing the truck like a horse or galloping behind us. It chases us around the corner up to the top of the hill. And when I got to the top of that hill, I had to gas as hard as it would go. And the thing actually felt like it leaped into the air. I leapt in the air. And I asked one of the guys later, and I'm not using their names because they asked me not to, what happened. He said, I don't know, boss, other than it disappeared right before it grabbed to the tailgate. And he told me to move on, the same thing. But I had to slam on brakes because those same three objects that were there when I left the top of the hill are still in front. But one of them had changed, I guess it had changed, to a football-looking shape object that appeared to be alive. The skin, it had like spikes coming out of it. And the Discovery Channel tried to do a computer deal, but it wasn't right. It wasn't like it really was. But this thing's sitting in the road between us and the highway, facing us. Now I'm stopped. Here's this thing in the road. Everybody's freaking out. Everybody's saying the world's coming to an end. This is just the emotion. I'm sorry, but it was a nightmare. So there's a mobile home nearby. So we turn, we get the idea we don't have a cell phone with us. We want another witness. People's not going to believe this, is what we're thinking. So I take my truck and I drive right up in this person's yard. I pull up to the front door, shine the lights in the window, the front door. A mobile home, single wide. Front door is wide open, glass door's there, 2 cars in the yard. I'm blowing the horn. One of the guys would jump out and he's knocking on the door, trying to get attention. Nobody's coming to the door. But we can see the TV playing through the door. And I'm looking out the window to my left, and this object's still sitting there between us and the highway. So we back out on the road, and we're facing this thing. Can't go anywhere. When I hear everything is, where's the Air Force? When's the Army coming? Fort Bragg is nearby. We were thinking the helicopters were coming in to save the day. So about that time, we hear these 3 gunshots. Just somebody was shooting at it. I don't know who was, but somebody was shooting at it. The minute we hear these gunshots, it turns and faces us, and it comes down the road. I'm talking this off the ground straight at us. And as it gets closer, it gains a little altitude. And it goes right over top of my truck and just clears the trees behind me. It's probably 60 feet in the air. I could have shot it with a slingshot through the sunroof and hit it. No noise. It was white. It looked like a solid white orb then. It gets to the top of the trees and it turns towards the north, and it's like shot out of a cannon. It just goes out of sight. So we step on the gas and we start home. Wide open, hard as we can go. And along the way, these guys, there are 3 of them, 2 of them live side by side, about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. The third one lives about 4 miles away. They were fighting who was going to go home first. Because we thought we'd never see our wives and children again. It was that bad. So I'm fussing, I'm not driving any faster. I can't go any faster. They were putting the pressure on me. And the biggest guy won out. He won the fight. And he lived 4 miles away. So we were going to his house first. We drove right on by these other 2. And there's this big old power line that crosses the road. High tension power line. There's 2 sets of poles. 2 double poles. Long draping line. When we went under that line, I tried to stop. They wouldn't let me. I got it down to about 10 miles an hour. But there's this big object hovering over top of the power line. We rode right up on the end of it good. I mean, it wasn't under, but it was like right there. They thought it was triangle. I don't know what it was. It looked maybe rectangle, but it was dark, it was black, and it had a big row of lights all the way down one side. And it looked to be 3 of those high tension poles spaced apart. It was huge. So I got on the gas and we went on by that, and I dropped the first guy off. I turn around and I come back, hoping we wouldn't see this thing. So we had to go just short of that. We didn't have to quite go to the power line to drop the other 2 off, because the power line came before the second guy's house. But we were still on the lookout for it. So we dropped these other 2 guys off, Chris Jr. and I. And I decided to take the long way home. I'm not going back the way I came. I'm going the long way. I'm trying to calm my son down. He's just in panic. So we get turned around and we start back. We get to a 4-lane highway called Highway 87. We get to this 4-lane, there's 6 or 8 cars pulled over to the side of the road, and they're standing out of the car, and they're looking in that direction. Right where the power line crosses this big head of woods. It was still sitting over this power line. You could see it from the main highway, and other people saw it. Other people reported it. They didn't have what we had, but there were several people, I think 7 or 8 in total, that told us that they had seen the lights that night. One guy said it flew 30 feet over his head. But Junior and I finally make it home. We get to my house. My wife's not there. She's off for a few days, her and the other 3 children. And I'm really panicked by now, trying to figure out what's just happened and what's going on with my son. He's 17 years old and just had a terrifying experience that I can't imagine. I'm just still seeing lights, in this guy. He's seen something playing on. He said they would crawl around on all 4s and pick up a stick and shake it and throw it on the ground. And they would look at him and he couldn't scream. He couldn't move. So imagine a child having that happen. So anyhow, I get him in the house. I drag him in. I knew this was going to happen. I get emotional.
Right.
But I get him in the house. He's panicked. He's running through the house, closing windows and blinds, turning lights on, locking doors. Bedroom door, he'd turn the bedroom light on, lock the door and close it. He'd go to the bathroom, turn the lights on, lock the door and close it. All the floodlights on. And I've got the TV on. I'm trying to find an invasion, a UFO invasion on television. I'm looking and nothing. Golly, somebody's got to do something. That's what I'm thinking. Nobody. Am I the only one? I guess we were there 30 or 40 minutes, and I hear this noise. It comes over the house, and I thought, oh, great, it's Fort Bragg, a helicopter. It was like a boom, 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 boom. It came right over the house, and immediately I'm visualizing a big old helicopter. And it was heading toward where the river is, which is a couple of miles away, 2.5 by air. So I told Junior, I said, here comes the Army. Here they come. Well, another 10 minutes goes by, and my dad lives next door. He's got a big dog kennel, hunting dogs. Now, there's 15 hounds in that dog kennel, and it's right behind our house. And all 15 of these hounds are just barking every breath. And the bark that they're making is one, I see something, I don't know what it is. They were scared. I had a red Chesapeake Bay Retriever, 110-pound female. She sat on the back steps, and she's barking every breath. I said, Junior, somebody's breaking in Dad's garage, because he's got a separate garage out near the dog kennel, and that's where I go out and work on stuff, and we build all kinds of stuff out there, boats and cars and motorcycles, and just hang out in the shop. I'm imagining the dogs have seen somebody walk through the yard and stealing out of the shop. He's like, no, Daddy, don't go out there, don't go. I said, son, somebody's going to break this shop. I said, don't worry, I won't take a flashlight. I'll sneak in the dark and I'll walk down towards this dog kennel and stay hidden. So that's what I did. I opened the door and he goes with me. He's got me by the back of the shirt. As soon as I open the door, this red dog, she takes off. She looks back and I just point. She goes straight on toward the dog kennel. So Chris Jr. and I get down to where the kennel is, and the noise was deafening. There's 15 hound dogs, and a hound dog has a big mouth. He's very loud, bark. I mean, like a beagle, you hear beagles are very mouthy, loud. These are big old Walker hounds. And 15 of them can make some sound. My hair was standing up. They're all pointing towards the back, behind the kennel in the forest. And my red dog, she's pointing straight, same way, her hair's standing up and down her back. Junior, somebody's in there. I said, I'm gonna send her in on whoever's in, and let's run back towards the house and get to the clearing and see if she pushes whoever's in there out. I was even thinking maybe it was a deer or bear, anything. But the way they were sounding was extremely scary. So I bump her on the rear end with my foot and say, get him, Rosie. She jumps right in the bushes, wide open, barking, just going on in. So immediately, Christopher and I start running, and he's got me by the shirt, still. I get down to the end of this little dirt road, and I get to the grass, and I turn towards the back of the property. Well, Christopher, I thought, had just turned loose, was still behind me, and I just run away from him. But undoubtedly, he ran towards the house. He went back. He couldn't stand the pressure anymore. So I ran on back to the back. I got to the very back of the property. And there's a big old oak tree there. I run up to that tree, and I got my hands against it. I panicked, just out of breath. And I look back like this. Now I got my hands against the tree. And I look back to see where he was. Well, he wasn't there, but there was this little glowing person that was this high. And he's about 4 feet from me. And I thought, oh my God, he's got me. So I put my back to the tree and I just surrendered. I said, you got me. I've screwed up. That's what I said. Just person straight out. I messed up. It stood there. It was about like a 4-year-old child. It was glowing. It's not me. I got the same ringtone.
Me too.
I have trouble telling this because of the it all comes back. But it's looking at me. It's not moving. His hands is to his side. And it has what appeared to be a shiny surface over its body, because his eyes appeared to be about the size of a taillight marker on a transfer truck, the little round marker lights. They protruded out like swimmer's goggles, but they were red, glowing bright red. I could see the reflection from its eyes on its body. The eyes looked digital, lines in it. I was just terrified. Well, here comes my dog. She's coming through the woods, barking. And I stood there maybe less than a minute, and she runs it on out of the way. Well, it disappears. I didn't see it leave. It just disappeared. Dr. O'Connell thought, and Lupin thought maybe it went up in the tree. And they found out the tree had this lichen. In fact, the tree, it killed the tree. Whatever happened, the tree did. Big giant oak just fell down. I didn't cut the stump. It was still about 20 feet high, but not a limb on it. Squirrels live in it, so I don't want to hurt their habitat. I used to shoot. Now I don't hunt. I pick bugs up if I see them, and I take them outside. It's that big a difference. So, the thing runs on out, or the dog comes on by me, it disappears. The dog goes a quarter mile past me, out of here, barking. I still hear it. So I start back toward the house, and I tell Christopher nothing about what I just saw. He's already got enough. But I said, I gotta smoke. I was a smoker then, I don't smoke no more. I quit. So he's got all the blinds locked. He locks the door behind me. He's just got everything battened down. And I run up and I put my knees on the couch and I raise the window up, the blind, the mini blind. And I pull the cord. And as I'm pulling the cord, I'm gonna raise the window and smoke and blow it out the window. That's what I had thought. The minute I raise this blind, 20 feet, now the floodlights are on, 20 feet out the window coming straight at me is this 7-foot tall blue being this tall. And it's walking towards me. I felt these chills coming from my top of my head to my toes. And I grabbed my son, and out the door I went, and I got in my truck, drove right up to my dad's window. He was asleep. I got him up. I said, Dad, something's in our yard. I don't know what it is. I'm just telling you, something's out there. And so he and I actually spent the night 5 miles in the opposite direction in the middle of Fayetteville to where I could see all the way around me the rest of that night. All that was reported, and by 5 men, all the same story. But you see how the TV shows turn out. They tried to make me look out to be a liar about this. And that's a long story. But when I reported it, I told them I thought they were angels because they were glowing. And what I didn't tell, and I'll tell it here, is it took me 5 years to talk about the abduction. What happened? But these big, tall, blue guys, I guess these little ones were like scouts for them or something, I don't know. But these big, tall, blue guys took me up and took me to see this lady that was beautiful. She was hovering above the ground and she was shining, brilliant, glowing, radiant. So what am I to think? She's like an angel. And that's how I reported it. And that's how come it's gotten to where it's at. That's why the professor from Berkeley, she's 12 years in the religious studies, has picked up this book. She's going to put a biblical perspective to it. The angels of the old text are the UFOs of today. And we can talk. I'll let you have it, Peter, if you want a minute. So a lot of things still happen. People ask. It's still ongoing. Grant Cameron, if any of you guys know him, he's experienced things. He was there and saw one of my dogs get cut and bleed profusely. And I laid her down on the ground, put my hands on her, and it stopped, and you can't find a cut. Trees catching a fire. I mean, it's just wild stuff. Ghost, paranormal started in our house. It all started after. It's all together.
Yeah.
I don't believe for a minute that somebody can be drowning in the lake and some Pleiadian come from way over there and save you from drowning. How does he know it? Has he got somebody watching and he can move that quick? I think it's more to it. I think we all have to look at the old text and take a different look. I don't know. I'll be first to tell you, I don't know. But I don't believe it's what everybody thinks it is. I'm not saying there's not other beings out there. I'm sure there's plenty of planets and they're a long ways away. And it's all theory that they can come from that far. But they're not coming that quick. Suzanne talking about these little beings saving her daughter. Why would a Pleiadian come to save a little girl when they're sick? How do they know it? I mean, I don't know. I hope everybody can think about it and help us find the answers to it. and I'll let you have it. Appreciate it.